Tonight, we're talking about a topic that is very close to me, and that is going back to work after having a baby. And a lot of you out there have sent questions in, concerns. You come into the store every day, or you're calling up for consultations because you're going back to work. And lots of times it's not even milk supply issues or pumping issues, it's just the emotionalness of what is it like to leave your baby for the first time. And having been a midwife and been around births and babies for years and years before I had my first daughter, Jade, almost 9 years ago. She'll be 9 in January. Can't believe it. I never really realized how hard that was going to be to leave her for the first time, even with a family member. I think so many of us will, we're pregnant, we're at our jobs, and we think, okay, we'll be out for a couple of weeks, we'll go back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or even 6 months, and then we'll leave our baby. We have all of our plans, but then when the time comes to actually go, it can be really challenging and difficult leaving. And so I created a lot of videos. We're doing them all up in the front of the show tonight. I promise you, after this, I'm going to come back with questions and answers. But since we filmed something so wonderful that talks about the whole issue of going back to work and leaving your baby, I wanted you guys to all get a viewing of it because it offers you some really, really good tips. Hi, I'm Shari Criso, and I want to talk to you about something that's really personal to me, and that's returning to work once you've had your baby. It can be a really difficult emotional time for most moms. I know it was for me when I first left my child that first time. With so many women in the workforce, so many of you out there are going to be facing it or doing it right now, and so it is a topic that a lot of people want to know about. When you're pregnant, you think, okay, well, when I'm 6 weeks after the baby's born, I'll be able to just go back. You have all your plans set because the baby seems really abstract. You don't really know how it's going to feel once you actually have your baby in your arms and it's time to leave. But once that baby comes, everything changes and the emotions can really run high. It's very hard to leave your child, especially in somebody else's hands, even if it's a personal friend, a family member, or even dad. So I wanted to give you some tips and ideas of what to think about and really give yourself the space to go through all the emotions that you may be going through when it's that time to go back to work. It is a really emotional time, and you don't know that till you're actually a mom. A couple things I want you to keep in mind is, first, make sure that if you find yourself some really good childcare, whether it's a family member or a daycare center, it doesn't matter as long as you feel really comfortable that when you leave your baby, they're in as good a hands as if you were with them yourself. Also, don't start on the first day of work, okay? That's going to be really hard for you. You're going to be thinking about your baby all day, and you really can't focus on your job. What I would recommend is actually start your daycare a week before returning to work so that your baby's in daycare and you can be home dealing with whatever emotion you have to in your own personal space, okay? Another thing is, remember, there are lots of moms who are out there who are going through the same thing. So a support group, either in your area or even online, would be a great idea to be able to talk out all the issues, get tips from each other, and really get somebody who understands. Talking it out will help tremendously. Third, remember to make the most out of the time that you are home with your child. It's not the quantity that counts, it's the quality of the time that you spend with them. Your baby needs you as much as you need them. So spend time cuddling, being together, and if you're breastfeeding, make sure you breastfeed at the breast because they need it so much. Remember, you can have it all. This process, it's not either or. It's not either I'm a mom or I go back to work. It can be both. I've done it myself, and so have so many other people. You could be a great mom, you could do the best thing that you can for your children, and you can still continue with that career that you worked so hard to build. I'm watching the comments rolling in as that video was playing, and I was thinking to myself how difficult it was for me when I first left that first time. And I remember it was my mother-in-law who was watching my baby, and I was just going into my office to see patients just for like 3 hours. I was going to be gone, but I was going to be gone during a feeding. And just the thought of somebody else feeding my baby, just the thought of somebody else soothing my baby, of not having my baby in my sight at all times, was just an overwhelming thought for me. That's why I recommend in the video that if you're going to go back to work, and I also recommend this in my DVD, to make sure that you practice this at least a week beforehand. Start your daycare sooner. You know, leave, go for short trips to the store, go out for a couple hours, pump some milk and leave it. And don't make it your first day back at work where you try this for the first time. I think it's just too hard. Not only for the baby, you know, the baby may have issues where you have to come back for whatever reason, but most likely it's going to be too hard for you. This is a really emotional thing, and some of us don't realize it till we're actually in that moment. And then on the other side of it is that I remember the first time I walked out of the house and kind of felt good to be leaving. I feel guilty saying that, but if any of you moms out there can relate, it does get easier with time to leave and to feel like a normal human being for a change, to get dressed, to talk to adults if you've been home for months. Going back to work can actually be a positive thing. And for my children, at least, I think they've had a really great experience with being with other people. They've become very independent from having other people watch them, whether it's my parents or Joe's parents, or with the au pair that we have now, Ola, our au pair, that's who was home with our, everybody goes, where are your kids? Like, when you're doing all this stuff, who's home with your children? We have an amazing, amazing au pair. Her name is Ola, and she's from the Ukraine, and she's going to be with us till January, and then we have a new person coming in January. We've been doing this program for several years now. We had somebody from Japan, and now we're getting somebody from Serbia. And I'll tell you, I left that as one of the links on my resource page for you. It's a company called aupaircare.com, and I don't know how many people are familiar with having an au pair service, having somebody, you know, come live with you from another country. They're wonderful, wonderful girls who come to stay in the home, so that way your child is actually in your home, or if you have older toddlers, somebody to care for them in a very inexpensive, affordable child care, whether you're going back to work part-time, full-time, or if you're actually thinking about starting your own business. And if you guys are doing that, you know, I'm right up the alley there to talk to about it. I always recommend that if you're planning to do start your own business, as Joy and the rest of her sisters have done, or myself, that you make sure that you have somebody who's really watching your children, because you can't do it while you're watching your children. It cannot be a hobby if you're going to do it if you're going to really start a business. So, you know, I think that trying to make it all work is definitely doable. And then when you are home with your kids, to really take the opportunity to really be with them, to really connect with them. If you're continuing to breastfeed, it's great to keep breastfeeding at the breast. Usually you save that last feeding for just as you walk through the door, because they're going to need you. They want you. They've missed you all day, and you're going to be shocked at how much you miss them too and want them as well. So make sure that you spend that quality time when you are home with them. But it can be really difficult, but it does get easier. I see so many of you guys saying that. How many are you out there have been going back to work already and can kind of say, yeah, it's getting easier? Is it getting harder, getting easier for you? Let everybody know. Jenna, are you having a hard time getting on there? I see you having all kinds of issues. Going crazy with twins. I see you there. Okay, anyway. Let's move on to some questions here, because I know you guys are all wanting to hear about how do I get my baby to sleep. What?
Does anybody want to hear?
Does anybody want to hear about sleeping? I don't know. Should we skip over that part tonight? I don't. Sleep. Yes, sleep. Okay, yes, I understand. Now, if you had said to me 6.5 years ago that I would be talking to hundreds of people online about how to get your baby to sleep, Joe would have laughed in my face, because I had no clue what I was doing with my own children. And Talia, if you're still there, you better be sleeping now, kiddo, because you didn't sleep for the first 6 months of your life. So for any of you out there who are struggling with not getting your baby to sleep, I can totally relate to that. Okay, I knew very little about that part of it. I knew a lot about birth and babies, but I knew very little about what happened afterwards. And I struggled, and that sleep deprivation was probably the part that killed me the most. I had to work. I was still, working in the store, running a business, and not sleeping well, and it was just awful. And I've learned so much along the way about how important it is, not only for you to get your rest. That means your baby sleeps well, so you get some rest. But really, really, how important it is for your baby to develop good sleeping skills early on in life, to get that deep sleep that helps them with their brain development early on in life, and that carries through for years and years to come for their learning abilities and their attention, the quality of their attention spans. And you know what happens is when babies lose a lot of sleep, and sometimes you have really fussy babies, when they're losing a lot of sleep, it's very hard to catch up on that sleep. And the sleepier and more overtired that they get, what happens is they release a hormone called cortisol that will actually stimulate them and make them even more overtired and even more difficult to get this to sleep. So as an overall suggestion, what I want to recommend is that you look for signs of drowsiness in your baby. It's very important that you don't wait till your baby is freaking out, crying, carrying on, rubbing their eyes, all those things before you actually start getting them to soothe and lay down and start going to sleep. You could look for signs of drowsiness. Now, when it comes to a newborn infant, babies really shouldn't be doing much more than eating and then sleeping, okay? They sleep hours and hours per day. They shouldn't be up for more than an hour to 2 hours at a time. A newborn baby shouldn't even be up for more than an hour at a time. You should be feeding them, burping them, swaddling and changing them, and they go right back to sleep. There really is no playing in the first 3 months. With newborn babies, what we see is that fussiness starts around 2 weeks of age. And at around 2 weeks, everybody has the same thing. They say things like, and I think I talk about this in my DVD, I'm not sure, where everybody talks about the first couple days, my baby's so good, my baby sleeps all the time. And what I've noticed is that extends out for about 2 weeks. The babies are still pretty good. They may cry to eat, but then they're pretty easy to soothe. And then somewhere around 2 weeks of age, and it's 2 weeks from the due date, okay? So if you have a baby that's early, this may happen much later. So 2 weeks from their due date, they start to get this fussiness starting, where it's harder and harder to put them down. And that fussiness peaks at around 6 weeks of age. And somewhere at that 6-week mark, there's not much you can do about it except some of the suggestions as far as swaddling your baby, okay? And we talked about this on a prior show with Lynette from Swaddle Designs. We talked about the importance of swaddling and how helping them by a tight swaddle in that confined space really helps to soothe the baby. Remember, they're coming from inside the uterus, and so they're looking for that confinement again. Rocking or swinging, and then especially sucking, okay? Sucking is a very important life-sustaining reflex in an infant, and they really, really do need to suck in order to soothe. And so many times people will ask, well, I heard I shouldn't let my baby suck, or I should take my baby off my breast. And, if you feel like you want to stop, the sucking on the breast when it's not actually eating, that's fine, but you have to understand that your baby still needs to suck. And so if you're not going to allow them to suck on the breast, then you're going to either give them your finger or use your wrist, or allow them to suck on their hand, or a pacifier, because just to not allow them to suck, and I know there's some books out there that talk about holding the baby's mouth closed and not allowing them to suck, and I don't believe in any of those things, okay? You really do. Soothing is sucking for babies, and so they do need to suck. And when you see your baby needing to, and I know some of the questions that came in were around, my baby will only go to sleep when they're at the breast, that's because they're sucking, and sucking is what's helping them to soothe. If you get into the habit of you only being the only thing that they can suck on, then that's what's going to happen, is the baby's going to want to suck on you in order to fall asleep. There's nothing wrong with doing that as long as you're happy doing that. And there are many moms who are fine doing that, and then there are moms who are asking me questions like, what else can I possibly do? And that's where other soothing techniques come in, but it all comes down to how old of a baby we're talking about. So let's go to some of the questions here that came in around sleeping. Let's see. And there were so many different questions. We're talking here about, okay, who's this? Jennifer. Oh, Jennifer from New Jersey. Hi, Jen. Okay, so she says, help! My 10-week-old baby still doesn't nap for long. She takes cat naps. What can I do besides swaddling her? Okay, what I've noticed is that one of the main reasons that I see babies waking up frequently, so what happens is you you feed them, and then you swaddle them, you put them down, and they seem to go to sleep for like an hour, but then an hour later they're awake again. It typically comes down to you not burping them enough, okay? Babies swallow air, and if they are swallowing air, they swallow air whether they're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, and the burping can sometimes take a lot longer than even the feeding, and too many people become very impatient with this burping process of really getting that air up. And what happens is an hour after that they go to sleep, that air is going to transfer into their intestine, and they're going to feel gas, and they're going to wake back up again. So they're not going to get a good deep sleep. The other thing is that if they're not in a quiet room, okay, it's very important that your baby is learning to sleep in their crib or learning to sleep in a nice, quiet environment. Too many of moms will keep their babies because of this advice from grandparents or everybody else around you. Everybody wants to give you advice of sleeping your baby in a room where there's a lot of noise. Let them get used to the noise. Keep the TV on. Let everybody talk. And the baby appears to be sleeping, but what's happening is they're not getting into that deep sleep. And by not getting into a deep sleep, they're actually getting overstimulated. And so they look like they could appear like they're sleeping all day, but they're actually not. And then what you'll get is a baby that's wired and awake all night. Remember that cortisol levels are high, and they will be awake all night for you. So this whole idea of like keep your baby awake all day to have them sleep better at night, have any of you ever tried that before? It totally does not work. Somebody's saying daycare will be noisy though. Yeah, that is a problem, that it is noisy. What you might want to try is like a white noise machine. Okay, so you can maybe drown out some of the noises that are around. I would recommend something like the Sound Sleeper, something that stays like plugged in or stays on, that doesn't turn off after 40 minutes, because then the baby's going to wake up again. A white noise machine will help very much, and using it on the wind or the rain, something that's a little more steady, will help your baby to sleep better. It's part of the class that I teach of soothing and calming your baby, is using some white noise to drown it out. Okay, awesome. You guys white noise works great. It does work great. And it doesn't have to be a heartbeat sound necessarily, okay, but just some kind of like a shh kind of sound, rather than lullabies. And music can work better later on, but in those early weeks I would probably stick to the white noise. Okay, so burping is definitely one of those things that you definitely want to make sure that you're doing well. And, burping, let's talk a little bit about burping, because I don't know if I've ever really discussed it much on the show. And I burp in a really funny way, and any of you who've taken my class, you know that I don't pat to burp, okay? Because there are two keys to burping a baby, okay? Burping, you don't have to pat the air. You're not patting the air out of the baby, okay? Think about it this way. When you have to burp, does somebody need to pat you on the back? No, right? Okay, so the same thing goes for your baby. And actually patting really hard can make your baby tense, where they're not going to get the air up. So what I tell all parents is that the key to burping a baby is to have your baby awake, okay? They cannot be asleep. They can't be unconscious asleep and burp. And they need to be not crying. So you got to have them awake and not crying. And you say, well, how do I accomplish that? They're either they're either sleeping or they're crying. And by doing some of the soothing techniques, whether they're swaddling, movement, shushing, and I kind of move the baby up and down like that and shush in their ear, and they stop crying. And from there, they're able to burp better, get the air out, and then they go down for those nice long naps. Now, babies should be taking somewhere between 2 to 3 naps per day, and those naps are going to get shorter and shorter, or they're going to start to eliminate as the baby gets older throughout the year. By the time they're a year old, they're usually down to only 1 nap a day. But all naps are not created equal, and from many studies that we know, the naps that they take early in the morning naps are usually not as deep of a sleep as those late afternoon naps. So those afternoon naps are pretty important, but it's usually the time when moms are out on the go, we're out shopping, we're out doing stuff, meeting with friends, and we tend to skip over it. And that will lead to a very fussy evening time, okay? And there is just that fussy evening time where babies just get, how do I explain it? They're just so overwhelmed by the whole day. They just can't take it anymore, and they get into this very fussy period somewhere around dinner time. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when you sit down and you're trying to eat, and the baby just wants to eat and feed and breastfeed constantly and wants to fuss all the time. Okay, that's the time when babies are most fussy. We call that the witching hour. Sometime around, I would say somewhere between 6 o'clock. For me, it started at like 7:30 on the dot. I remember with Jade, our first one, for the first 3 months. Remember, Joe? 7:30. He was working far away at the time. He was like an hour and a half away with traffic, and I was home with this baby, and she didn't cry the whole day. She was great. But 7:30 at night would come, and I could literally watch the clock, and at 7:30 she would just start screaming her head off, and there was just nothing I could do. And he used to call me from the car, and she'd be crying, and I'd be crying, and I just, I'd turn the TV up louder. I had no idea what to do with this kid. But what she was really crying for was the fact that she needed better sleep during the day. We were out a lot. We were not really getting those good quality naps, and that's very, very important to make sure you're getting good quality naps where they're in a dark room and really sleeping. Okay, I know that Crazy Mom of Going Crazy with Twins, Janet out there, had asked a question. I'm looking for your question, Janet, because it was a good one for right here. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. You were asking about the swing. Okay, if it's okay to keep the baby in the swing for that long. Yes, here it is. What should I do if my baby's fight going to sleep in a crib? Isn't sleeping in a swing a prop that can cause other dependent props? I want you to remember that your babies were born a little prematurely, and so you want to adjust for age. If they're still below the 4-month mark, 3-4 month mark, you really can't form bad habits, and I think I've told you this in the past. In those first couple of months, you really do what the baby needs. If the baby needs to swing, then the baby needs to swing and needs movement. As we start getting to the 4-month mark, that's when you want to start to train the baby to be sleeping in their crib. Get them into a nice quiet dark room, get some room darkening shades, and really start teaching them how to sleep. Naps and sleep is like a learned skill that you need to be able to teach your baby, and it's a real gift that you will give to your child. Babies that do not sleep well turn into children that do not sleep well, and then into adults who do suffer from insomnia, and kids who suffer from ADD and attention deficit disorder. So it's very important that we focus on this early on in life and we teach our children how to sleep. I did a consultation just this week with a mom who had an 18-month-old who was still not sleeping or getting up. Actually, she was 2.5 years old. She was getting up in the middle of the night. The kid was sleeping in a bed now, getting up in the middle of the night and coming into the bed with her during the night and nursing and sleeping with them for the rest of the night. But both mom and child were not getting a good night's sleep. And it's very difficult at that point because now the child is walking and coming out of their room. You want to be getting into this routine of getting your baby into a sleep routine early on when the baby's still in a crib. My suggestion at that point was to put a gate on the door on the bedroom so that you could explain to your child that they cannot leave their room. They need to stay in their room and keep them in. It's very difficult. There's so many different suggestions on how to get your baby to sleep, and obviously with a newborn, I would never recommend letting them cry, okay? That they're crying for a reason. So you don't just let a newborn cry, or even up to 4, 5, 6 months old. They're crying for a reason. They need you. But beyond that point, there's a point where it does become a learned behavior. They know that if they cry, you're going to come. And that's where you need to start teaching them. The way that I did it with my children was at around 8 months of age. When they cried, they were standing up in their crib. I would go into their room, but I wouldn't pick them up. I would just kind of stand there, hold them, hug them, kiss them, let them know that I was there, and then walk back out again. And of course, it was heartbreaking. The crying did go on for a little while, but not nearly as long as I thought it was going to. It took about one night, maybe 2 nights of a little bit of crying, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, even an hour. And then they started sleeping through the night. And like I said, I don't recommend this in the first 4 to 6 months, but after that, you may want to try it because it really does work and it doesn't prolong it. Okay. There's a question that came in from Stacy, and Stacy's also from New Jersey, and she asked, how do I teach my 7-week-old baby to fall asleep on his own? I currently rock and shush him to sleep, but he wakes up as soon as I put him in his crib. Again, 7-week-old baby, very hard to get them to fall asleep on their own at times. The swaddling is definitely one of the things that you want to do. Swaddling with the arms in, something tight, either here or straight down. If they're busting out of this swaddle from here, then you want the arms straight down so they can't get out. Babies have a very strong what's called Moro reflex, and a Moro reflex, and you all know what I'm talking about, is that when the head goes back, the hands like jerk like that. They kind of come midline. It's like that falling motion that they do, and that startle reflex. Okay, and when the head goes back is exactly when you're going to put them down. So you want to swaddle them in a way that when it doesn't elicit that Moro reflex when you go to lay them down. Give them something to suck on, whether it's a pacifier or their hand is able to stay in their mouth. Usually at 7 weeks, it's very hard to do that. So pacifier would be my best suggestion. Swaddling, white noise, and even movement, swinging, helping them, depending on how fussy and difficult your baby has how difficult of a time your baby has at self-soothing, you may have to help them soothe at 7 weeks. It's a little bit early. Okay. Let's go on to some other questions. How are you guys doing? Can you swaddle too much? Okay. Kay Chavez. Hello, Kay. Can you swaddle too much? Will it affect their development? They do need to have a little bit of time free. I would say that when you're breastfeeding would be a great time to have your baby skin to skin, undress them, undress yourself, put your baby skin to skin, allow them to stretch and move, put a blanket right over them when they're up at your breast, but that they can be right up at your skin would be awesome. But in those first couple weeks, and as you start to approach that 6-week mark, you might be finding that you're swaddling all the time to keep your baby happy. So, no, I don't think that you can swaddle too much. If your baby's happy, most likely you're doing the right thing. They will tell you if they are not comfortable, okay? Joe has something for me here as a question. Yeah. Oh, Joe's coming to say hi. Joe, come join us. Say hello to all the dads out there. We need to represent the dads.
I have been. Shout out to the dads. We have Marcus in the house.
Hey, Marcus. Hey, Marcus is going to be on with us next week. They're our sponsors for next week with More Milk. Awesome. Great to see you.
Some great questions here. Thank you, everybody. Stacy's saying her 5-month-old still doesn't get past 2 hours sleep.
Yes.
And she's tried everything. Burping, swaddling, white noise, etc. Hates swaddling. Okay. But could this be a case of where...
Yeah, I mean, 2 hours is a pretty good nap. Yeah,
true.
2 hours is a good nap. It could be what I would be looking for is trying to get several of those 2-hour naps. And I'm not sure, are you getting those naps in like a quiet, dark room, or are you getting those naps, out on the run, on the go, or in the living room with the TV going? That's going to make the difference. 2 hours of really good deep sleep is going to give your baby what the baby needs. But I would have at least, how old's the baby? 5 months?
5 months.
5 months. You want to have like at least 2 or 3 of those good naps throughout the day. And how's the baby sleeping at night? That's another question.
She said at night. I mean, not nap.
Oh, 2 hours at night. 2 hours at night at 5 months old. Yeah. Here's the deal. Okay, so when you're asking your friends, like, and this happens all the time, people say, well, my friend can go like all night without nursing, or my friend can go 4 hours between feedings, and I'm still going every 2 to 3 hours. How come? Why is that? That all has to do with breast capacity, and unfortunately there's not that much you can do about breast capacity. What breast capacity is how much milk can your breast hold at one feeding. So in other words, over a 24-hour period, a baby will eat a certain amount of food, and how many feedings it takes to get to that amount depends on how much your breast can hold per feeding. Now, for some people, they can hold a lot more milk, and those babies are getting more milk at a feeding. For other babies, they're getting less milk at a feeding, but need to do them a little bit more frequently. If you're still waking up every 2 hours, I would say that at this point, doing more of the swaddling, if you're saying that the baby's being swaddled at 5 months, how tight? How are you swaddling is my question. Are those hands out or in? Because if those hands are out, you may need to have the hands in. For some babies at 5 months, they can self-soothe and they use their hands to suck on, and we recommend keeping one hand out. But for other babies that are waking up frequently, you may need to have the hands in order to keep them asleep. And they do wake up frequently, but they can self-soothe to go back. So getting up and waking up with every little sound. What did she say? I
He
stopped. He
hated it.
hated it.
But how many times have you heard that?
He hated being swaddled. Okay, he hated being swaddled with the arms in. However, were you using a pacifier? What were you doing with the arms in beyond just see? By the dream swaddle. Yes, my son loves swaddling. I made the mistake of
Swaddle
soothing him
design.
to sleep with the breast. Swaddle designs. Okay, or the dream swaddle, the swaddle design, something that's going to keep your baby's arms in. The baby will scream in the beginning, but if you can swaddle with one arm in and one arm out, maybe he'll have a better time self-soothing at that point. Make sure that the babies, if sometimes babies cannot be fully laying down, so you can have the mattress elevated a little bit. Sometimes babies have difficulty completely laying down to sleep. And you know, a lot of babies now with the positioners, they're talking about not using positioners. They'll roll onto their sides. You have to be careful if the baby's rolling over to make sure that they're not completely swaddled if they're rolling, so that they can't actually get off, you know, onto their belly and then not be able to move. Okay. Um, it could be that your baby is just needing to eat that often, and it may be just a phase that they're going through. Babies have growth spurts, and those normal growth spurts occur at about 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months, and again around 6 months. And it could be that your baby's going through a growth spurt at this point where, you know, he really needs to eat every 2 to 3 hours, even during the night. Are you working during the day? Is there anything else going on that is adding to this? Because if the baby's waking often, it could be what we call reverse cycling. And this happens a lot when moms go back to work, is the baby, you know, sometimes will want to breastfeed more at the breast. And so it's easier for mom to actually have the baby sleeping with them or near them in a co-sleeper and waking up frequently to nurse during the night so they don't have to produce as much milk during the day. In my Breast Pumps and Briefcases audio, I talk a lot about reverse cycling. And for moms who are struggling with milk supply while they're back at work, this is a really, really good suggestion, is to nurse more at night. For most of you, you'll also notice that you make more milk at night. So it's sometimes easier to breastfeed during the night. Remember, the baby needs a certain amount of milk throughout the day, so this may be a good way of doing it. And your baby's just naturally doing that, but you need to keep the baby close to you, so you don't have to keep getting up. Getting up every 2 hours is the hard part. Okay, I have a question here from Kelly in New Jersey, and Kelly says, hi, Shari. I'm going back to work, and I'm very concerned that my sitter will feed my baby formula because typically people think a breastfed baby is hungry when they're crying. Okay, please help. Please help. Does every first-time mommy worry about this? Well, first of all, Kelly, you need to tell your caregiver that absolutely this baby is not going to get formula if you're breastfeeding, okay? So, you know, whatever you have to do, I don't know. If you're worried that this person's going to go out and buy formula while you're out, then you take a look at who's actually watching your child. Let them know that this child is breastfed, and if that's even failing for you, you might need to find a new caregiver, okay? But yes, it's very typical that babies that are breastfed, they eat much less food than a formula-fed baby counterpart. So at the same age, they're eating less volume. And so caregivers can be used to the amount of food that's in a bottle of formula. And when the baby cries and needs to be soothed in other ways, they assume that it's hunger and can use up all your milk at one feeding. Okay, this is really important to educate them. Okay, educate them on how much a breastfed baby actually eats at a feeding. Somewhere about 3 to 4 ounces is what they eat when they hit around 6 to 8 weeks of age. And it doesn't really increase much more from this throughout the year. So if they start using up all your milk at one feeding, you're going to have an issue. All right, but make sure, I mean, I think, Kelly, the concern for you is more just the normal concern that new moms have of leaving your baby with somebody. I really don't believe that the person that you chose is going to go out and buy formula when you told them not to. Um, it's just the same worry that we all have of leaving our children with somebody else and thinking they're going to make decisions that go against our wishes. You know, this happens to me all the time still with my mom, of her doing things, you know, that I don't want her to do, and yet that happens. But if you trust the person that you're leaving them with, I think that's the most important thing, that they'll ultimately make the decisions that you're asking them for. Okay? But I think it's normal mommy worry stuff. And come back to work, okay? So My son is, let's see, keep on going here. I'm going to talk a little bit. I have a low milk. Okay, this one came in from Amy in Ontario, Canada. Hi, Amy. And she's asking that, she says that she has a low milk supply. Is it better to nurse the baby and let him suck whenever he wants, even if he's using me as a soother? Or is it better to only feed him at the breast once they start to feel full and supplement with a bottle in between if he gets hungry? Okay, she's supplementing right now. 3 to 4 times a day after right now after each nursing. Okay, so here's what I want to say about this. The waiting for your breast to get full to feed or waiting for your breast to get full to pump is not a good idea, okay? The way breast milk is made, it's a supply and demand system. So breast milk it doesn't just like fill up at a certain time and then it's empty, and then fill up at a certain time and it's empty. Your body is constantly making milk. And so when you actually start to feel full, it's giving your brain a signal to make less. And so by nursing frequently and constantly keeping the breast drained, you will actually start to increase your supply. This could be the reason why you're not making enough milk, is that you're waiting to feel full in order to pump, or you're waiting to feel full in order to feed. I would start reducing some of those formula bottles and keep increasing the frequency of those feedings. I don't know how old your baby is. You didn't mention here what's going on. And I think that if you're still having this issue and you want to breastfeed and you're supplementing as much as you are, we need to do a consultation together. You know, you can call the store and I can either do a Skype or telephone consultation with you, but we need to talk about this a little bit more. This is concerning to me because I think that you want to breastfeed, and what's happening now from what you're describing, you're on a sort of a downward spiral here where you're going to start to replace all of your breast milk with formula, and then you're not going to be breastfeeding at all. So I'd like to get a jump on this. If you want some help, call the store so we could set up a consultation right away. That's something that we need to work on one-on-one. Okay. You're also asking about giving the baby chamomilla and also Advil for teething. You can get, the question was, can I use chamomilla and still use Advil at the same time for a teething baby? The answer is yes, because chamomilla, if you're talking about homeopathic chamomilla, again, you cannot take too much homeopathic medicine and it doesn't have any interactions with the Advil. However, I would hope that maybe you don't have to use the Advil. It may be that the baby needs something other than chamomilla to calm down. Joe, can you grab me the Vibracol? Because it's one of my favorite products. It's over here on the shelf here. You know, the homeopathy works in a way where sometimes it's one remedy, sometimes it's another remedy. I have something called Vibracol. Okay, this is Vibracol. Okay, and these are drops, homeopathic drops for infants. This was my savior. My nanny with my little one used to call this the magic. She was from Colombia. She used to say, this is the magic stuff, okay? We used to drop it in the baby's mouth. It comes in drops, and you can use it as many times a day as you want, pretty much. It tastes like saline, but it has a blend of different remedies. So it may be that chamomilla is not working because chamomilla is not the right remedy for your baby at that particular time. This one will have all the different remedies already all mixed together. So I would recommend using that before I would switch over to Tylenol or Advil. I don't like a lot of medication for babies, okay? There are some other things that you need to know about as well. Somebody was asking about sleeping for themselves. This was a pregnancy question that I want to get to. Pregnancy, let's see, where are you? I have a question. Here. 30 weeks pregnant. And although she can go to sleep initially easy, she wakes up in the middle of the night and can't return to sleep for hours. Does anybody remember that when they were pregnant, just not being able to sleep? Oh, God. I remember I was so big at the end of my pregnancy. I used to have to, if I wanted to roll over from one side to the other, I used to have to get out of the bed and then get back into the bed in the other direction because I could not roll my body over. So I just know that feeling of not being able to sleep, and there's not much you can do about it usually. It's your, like we always say, I don't know if it's the truth or not, but it's like what makes us feel better is it's like nature's way of having you get used to the baby coming and being awake all night. But there is, again, another homeopathic remedy that I personally started using recently, and I've been using with my pregnant clients, and it's something called Rescue Sleep. This, again, very, very safe. You can use this while you are pregnant. You can use this while you're nursing. nursing. There's also a rescue remedy that works great for letdown. That was another question that came up while I'm working. What helps me to get the letdown to start? The only other thing I could think of is something called rescue remedy. You spray this right in your mouth. Joe's going to get it. Joe's got all my, see, this is why I do this in my store. It's so great because these are all awesome things that most people just don't know about that are available. This is rescue remedy. Okay, this works great for letdown. Okay, so if you need, and it works great for any kind of stress. Joe uses it all the time, just spraying it in his mouth.
Me? Stress?
Sitting in traffic, you know, you're having that traffic,
Oh,
you,
yeah.
you know, and the chaos that goes on, and you just spray a little in your mouth. And again, safe for nursing, safe for pregnancy. Look, there's not that many things that you could take while you're pregnant, while you're nursing, that are safe, that can help you and not harm you. When you can find things like that that actually work for your baby, for yourself, by all means, go ahead and use it, and it works fantastic. There was one more question that I definitely wanted to go over here, and that was, the question came in, how can you relax an older baby to sleep? Couple things, okay, that I want you to think about when you're talking about an older baby. And we're talking about, 10 months, 12 months, 18 months. I still consider them babies at that point. Infant massage, okay, works really well with a baby. I just want to make sure that you're getting yourself an organic baby oil, the oil from Earth Mama Angel Baby, or something organic that, you're rubbing into your baby's skin. Again, we've talked about that before, and we're going to be talking about it in one of the upcoming episodes in a couple weeks on organic products and how important that is in skincare. But as far as using some kind of a massage oil that's organic, but infant massage can be very, very relaxing before bedtime, a nice warm bath, establishing some bedtime routines so that, they know kids are very, they like structure. And so when they know that you're getting into a routine, they're getting into their pajamas, you're saying the same type of words to them at the same time, they start to understand that it's time for bed. And those routines can be very, that can make it much easier for bedtime, having a favorite toy, or, using less stimulation. This is just one thing I've seen so many times, is that, babies are like with us all evening. The chaos in the house, people coming and going, the TV on, blasting, the phone ringing, dad's on the phone, working, everybody's on the computer, and then you expect this kid to just like go upstairs and go to sleep, okay? They're so stimulated at that point, they actually need some winding down time. I know for myself, it's very hard to go from like complete stimulation to sleep. And so, lowering the lights in the house, making everything nice and quiet, that warm bath, that massage, and getting them to quiet down before they actually get into that craziness will definitely help, okay? Are we, Diana wants to know, are you supposed to wake a sleeping baby? Absolutely not, okay? Do not ever wake a sleeping baby. Okay, the baby's sleeping, let the baby sleep. The baby needs to sleep. Now, there are a few exceptions to this, is when you have a preemie or a brand newborn that's not gaining weight and may have low blood sugar or that type of thing. But I'm talking about like a baby that's doing well, peeing, pooping, gaining weight, doing well. They should not be on some kind of schedule where you're waking them up to feed, okay? Because you don't know when they're going to start to go longer. So please don't wake up your baby if they're sleeping. You could be interrupting their sleeping, actually create issues where you don't have any. Be very happy that your baby is sleeping. So no, do not wake a sleeping baby. So let's see. This is Trishana from Illinois. She's asking a couple questions here, and I thought they were really important questions to address. Hold on, I need a drink of water. Take a sip, okay? I've been talking for a long time. Okay, so she asked a question. Okay, she said, I'm breastfeeding my 1-month-old, and how do I transition to a soy-based milk formula if I choose to do so? Okay, first of all, that just like was glaring out at me because I do not recommend soy formula for anybody, okay? Soy formula is not a good idea. If you're transitioning to a formula, I'm not really sure why you're choosing soy. If you want to do a consultation, obviously call me, but let me tell you about soy formula. Soy is not that healthy for your child. Soy is probably the last choice of formula that I would use on my child. The estrogenic effects of soy have been known to have, let's put it this way, the amount of soy that a baby gets in soy formula by drinking soy formula on a regular basis is like taking 5 birth control pills a day, okay? It's like estrogen, enough estrogen to change a grown woman's menstrual cycle, all right? This is not what I'd be doing to my baby or giving to my baby. So the first choice, if I was going to be using formula, would be a dairy-based formula made with all organic ingredients, okay? So I would definitely not choose the soy formula. I know that wasn't your question. You were asking about how do I transition, but I wouldn't first of all use the soy, okay? The other question that she asked was, should her baby wear a snowsuit in the car seat? And that's really important as we're getting into the winter months right now, okay? Using snowsuits in the car seat can actually be very dangerous. The recommendations are to wear very little clothing and then blankets on top or a bundle me or something that's going to actually keep the baby warm without putting too much bulky clothing on them, okay? If you put snowsuits on the baby, what's going to happen is you're bundling in or strapping in the snowsuit, but the baby itself is not being snapped in. It could be too bulky, and in a car or a motor vehicle accident, that baby could fly out of the car seat. So yes, no heavy snowsuits. The snowsuits are good for like walking around in the stroller, putting them into a bassinet stroller, but not for the car seats, okay? It's very, very old-fashioned kind of thing to do. All right, and then what should I use to moisturize for my baby's hair and skin? Again, something organic, like an organic baby oil. Earth Mama, again, I would recommend for your baby. So, okay. Last question of the night, okay? Last question here. This question came in from Melissa in Kansas, okay? Hi, Melissa. I hope you're still out there. The question was, help, I have excess lipase in my pump milk. I just went back to work 2 days ago and found that after my pump milk stayed in the fridge for 2 days, it would taste sour, and my baby rejected it. What causes this to happen? And would I have why would I have excess lipase with this baby when I didn't have it with my first 2? Lipase is an enzyme that's in the milk that helps the fat to break down in the milk. And for some people, they have a lot of this lipase, which can cause the milk to have like a sour or metallic taste after it's been stored for a day or 2, or even after freezing. I don't know if some of you have ever experienced this with your milk. For some people, this is a really big problem because the milk just doesn't keep even for a day in the refrigerator. And if you're going back to work and this is an issue, your baby will refuse or reject taking it because it doesn't taste good. One way to handle that kind of extra lipase in the milk is to actually scald the milk. So that means that after pumping the milk, you would actually put it in a pan, scald it, not bringing it to a boil, but just enough to where it bubbles on the sides, and then from there refrigerating or freezing it. And this will help to reduce the amount of lipase in the milk and hopefully keep the taste good where the baby will accept the milk, okay? If you're at work and you're pumping it, things that I've read have shown that it can wait at least about 3 to 4 hours. So you may want to plan your pumpings, like pumping first thing in the morning, scalding before you go to work, and then pumping again within 3-4 hours of coming home so you can scald the milk that way too. If you don't have access to a stove at work. Other questions that came in were, can I scald using the microwave? Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever microwave your breast milk. You will kill all the good properties of the milk. And so microwaving milk is definitely not something that we ever endorse or recommend, okay? I love you guys, okay? Enjoy your babies. Enjoy your families. And I will see you next week. Mwah!